Alright, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good evening to all. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Mahir for his invitation for me to share with you on the topic research design. Okay, a bit background, my background. I'm Farid Samsuddin. I'm now working at University Malaya in Department of Library and Information Science. And as mentioned by Dr. Mahir just now, I'm also a former student in 2005, 2000 to 2010 in UiTM as a PLK student, pengajian luar campus, doing degree that time, bachelor degree. So my interest research mostly in quantitative study, although I also been involved in several qualitative kind of study. But in this sharing session, I would like to have actually, I would love to have two-way such communication, which is I hope there will be much question being asked related to your current research, current doing studies, so that I can reflect more lively and um, give response in related to your study lah. Alright. So maybe I will mix some Malay if you uh, hard to understand what I'm going to share with you. And during this sharing session, please notify me if you have any question, because I could not see the chat there, so maybe you can alert me. Yeah. All right. So without further ado, this research design also will be part of your chapter 3, research methodology. So I don't want to go to all these notes. Actually, this is a theory part, so maybe might be boring. So please relate with your current studies during my lectures. Okay. Okay. So contents that we will cover this on this sharing session based on purpose. What is the purpose of your study, and what is types of the investigations, and then how about the research measurement on the operational definition, the level of measurement, the instrument or scale of development that you want to include into your research, and then what types of approach that you want to conduct on your research, either quantitative approach or qualitative approach. Okay, so research design is a plan to answer your research question. Yeah, first of all, you have to have a research question. Then a research method is a strategy used to implement that plan. Research design and methods are different but closely related, because good research design ensures the data you obtain will help you answer your research question more effectively. Okay, so the research design refers to the overall strategy that you choose to integrate the different components of the study in a coherent and logical way, thereby ensuring you will effectively address the research problem. It constitutes the blueprint for the collection, measurement, and analysis of data. Note that the research problem determines the type of design you should use, not other way around. So first of all, you have to clear with your problem statement, research problem, and then you have to construct your research question. So this research problem and research question will lead you to what types of research design that you want to apply in your research, especially for those doing PhD or masters in research. You have to very clearly clarified with what types of research design will be conducted throughout your study. Yeah, if not, your research question or research problem cannot be attend if you have mistakenly used a different or other types of research design. So this is very important. The first part of your research. Okay, based on the purpose of study, we will go through the exploration or description and hypothesis testing. Okay, how do you write a research purpose? So creating a purpose statement, you have to clearly define your study as a quantitative or qualitative. So from the problem statement, from the research question, clearly you should identify, oh, this kind of study, this kind of question can be answered whether in terms of quantitative approach or qualitative. So this is important. And then use words to clarify your intent, like explore or compare. So is it involve exploration or comparison in your research question? Okay, and then clearly define how the research will take place. How the research will take place means, is it will involve huge population, maybe certain or specific uh, kind of only peoples will involve in your research. Then discuss who or what will be researched. Apa yang kita nak kaji, what things that we want to study actually. Who we will approach them to get the specific answer or specific um, question that we want to ask for. Then last one, clarify where the research will take place. So this is mostly on the geographical area lah. So whether it's includes or consists of certain places or maybe certain organizations in a place. So these have to be clarified in your chapter 1, chapter 1, the introduction part. Right, this list or maybe more other than this out there, types of research design. Action research design, case study design, causal design, cohort design, cross-sectional design, descriptive design, experimental design, exploratory design, field research design, historical design, longitudinal design, meta-analysis design, mixed method design, observational design, philosophical design, sequential design, and also included here systematic review, which is can be called also types of research design nowadays. And another one is bibliometric research or bibliometric design, can be so called also as type of research design. So this kind of new research design, if you um, if you if you try to look out there, maybe this will also you will find that this kind of research has been conducted by the other universities out there, but in Malaysia still new kind or new types of research design being conducted, but it is possible to be done. All right. So the exploratory design. Okay. So what is an exploratory design? It is conducted about research problem when there are few or no earlier studies to refer to or rely upon to predict an outcome. So it is very basic design, which is you have questions purpose to be asked, which you cannot find anywhere else for the answers. So you have to conduct this type or this kind of exploratory designs. Means when you do the literature review also, you cannot find any related or any literature that can helps you in identify this kind of phenomenon or question. So you have to conduct this kind of exploratory design. So the focus is on gaining insights and familiarity for later investigation or undertaken when research problems are in a preliminary stage of investigation. And exploratory designs are often used to establish an understanding of how best to proceed in studying an issue or what methodology would effectively apply to gathering information about the issue. Okay, so what do this study tell you on exploratory design? Design is a useful approach for gaining background information on a particular topic. So if you want to know the background of information in specific topic, so this kind of research design that is suitable for your research. And then exploratory research is flexible and can address research question for all types. Why, how of the 5W1H. Why, how, where, all right? And then provides an opportunity to define new terms and clarify existing concepts. And also exploratory research is often used to generate formal hypotheses and develop more precise research problems. So this exploratory research is helpful for further research, further conducted research. Means after you conduct this exploratory research, it will enhance you another new research to be conducted based on the findings on this exploratory research, to helps you generate hypotheses or maybe to precise the research problems. And then in the policy arena or applied to practice, exploratory studies help establish research priorities and where resources should be allocated. Okay, descriptive design. Descriptive research design helps provide answers to the question who, what, when, where, and how associated with a particular research problem. A descriptive study cannot conclusively ascertain answers to why. Descriptive research is used to obtain information concerning the current status of the phenomena and to describe what exists with respect to variables or conditions in a situation. So this kind of descriptive designs will involve several kinds of variables, several kinds of theories. So it kind of it's not reporting, but it can sit um, similarly like a reporting kind of research design. So what do these studies tell you? The subject is being observed in a completely natural and unchanged natural environment through experiment whilst giving analyzable data often adversely influence the normal behavior of the subject. So aka the Heisenberg effect, whereby measurements of certain system cannot be made without affecting the system. So descriptive research is often used as a precursor to more quantitative research design, with the general overview giving some valuable pointers as to what variables are worth testing quantitatively. So it much kind of testing could be conducted, whether testing the hypothesis or maybe testing the previous results, whether these current results of your research, whether it is similar or different findings will be gathered at the end of study based on previous study. All right. Then If the limitations are understood, they can be a useful tool in developing a more focused study. So doing descriptive design, you can be more focused. For example, if after you conduct the exploratory design, you can conduct this descriptive design from the data or findings that you have gathered. And then descriptive study can yield rich data that lead to important recommendation in practice. So approach collects a large amount of data for detailed analysis. Right, this one, causal design. Causality studies may be thought of as understanding a phenomenon in terms of conditional statements in the form if X, then Y. So this is kind of causal. If it is X, so then the result could be Y. Then this type of research is used to measure what impact a specific change will have on existing norms and assumptions. Most social scientists seek causal explanations that reflect tests of hypotheses. And what do these studies tell you? Causality research design assists researchers in understanding why the world works the way it does through the process of proving a causal link between variables and by the process of eliminating other possibilities. And replication is possible. So if previous studies have conducted this specific kind of study, so you can do the similar study. You can replicate the previous study and let's see how the findings, whether it is similar or different, because it is replicable. And then there is greater confidence the study has internal validity due to the systematic subject selection and equity of groups being compared. Yeah, this one also will be some of the factors that that allow you to replicable this kind of research or studies, but maybe using different kind of groups or maybe different kinds of subjects. Depends on the current situation, because you have to know that every research, every studies, previous and current, um, there is no promise that the current studies will be the same as the previous health studies. So we want to know whether there is an evolution or there is changes happening, especially for us, which is in the field of social science studies, which is we will involve more in studying human than studying other than other disciplines lah, maybe in terms of technologies or the science itself. We will involve more in humans. So studying humans is not it's not easy. Yeah, for example, yesterday you go to the specific person and you ask one question. For example, what what is your favorite books? What books that you enjoy most previously? Yeah, during maybe okay. But if you come back again today and ask the same question, maybe that person have a different favorite books, and then they didn't remember the previous book that he have told us. Yeah, so yeah, dealing with humans is not easy, especially when we do a research related to humans. Very challenge, very challenging. Okay, so types of investigations. So we have gone through the exploratory, the descriptives, and causal. So causal have slightly been discussed before. So let's see what is the correlation and group differences. All right. So in research concerns or objectives, if you have any question, please just unmute your mic. Yeah, we can maybe have detailed discussion. There were three major research concern. First, describe phenomenon. Whether you want to describe frequencies, more on numbers, the percentage. And then number two is comparison between groups. And another one, relationships or correlations. So these three major research concerns sometimes will mix in your specific one research study. Maybe you want to test for both comparison and relationship. So it can be in one study, but depends on your problem statements. If your problem statement clearly did not involve any comparison to be taken, so why you should do a comparison um, kind of research design, right? So yeah, depends on your problem statement, and from the problem statement you have to clarify your research question. Okay, so all these kind of research design have to be cleared from your research question. It's not simply just like, oh, I want to know what is the difference, or I just want to know how is the relationship. And all these problem statements and research question will be back to previous studies findings. If there is support from previous studies, then easily for you to conduct this current studies. If there is no supports, maybe difficult for you to continue doing the current or specific studies. Because this will invite more questions during your viva. All right. All right. These are the examples of hypotheses that you can apply in your research design. Again, it will reflect on your research question actually. If you want to see a difference or comparisons, so you may apply this kind of hypothesis for comparing group difference. So for example, some of the studies or research stated their null hypothesis, and sometimes they stated their alternative hypothesis. But this all, as I mentioned before, it is based on previous studies. So based on these studies, they mentioned there is no difference on employees' job satisfaction between flexible working hours and fixed working hours, for example. So this null hypothesis has been taken from previous study. So we want to know, is it sure there is no difference between these two group of employee? Yeah, the flexible and fixed working hours. So previous studies did impact on your current studies. And another example for the alternative hypothesis, employees who have flexible working hours will report greater job satisfaction than employees who work fixed. So these kind of alternative hypothesis may be or could be found in the findings or conclusions of the previous studies. The easier for you, this is a tips, the easier for you to create hypothesis is based on the previous studies statement. So clearly the previous study I mentioned this statement, so you will use this statement as your hypothesis. Right? And the other example, this one based on low-cost airlines on the difference between whether they have delays or not don't have delays. And another one, whether the student who have breakfast have better or exam performance between who do not have breakfast. So these kind of hypothesis you can clearly found in previous studies in their findings or conclusions. All right, this one hypothesis for relationship. Okay, if your problem statement did mention on the relationship, there is something going on a relationship, and then you have construct research question based on relationship. So this kind of hypothesis can be constructed or stated in your research design. But depends. Depends. What I'm sharing to you today, tonight, is based on my school of thought. In research, there are a lot of um, boleh cakap apa school of thoughts. Maybe your supervisor have different school of thought, me have a different school of thought, but still it is a research. When you handling a research, it must be clear, it must be justified, it must be bukan logic, it must be clearly justified in terms of apa ni, in terms of it is visible, it is credible, apa lagi, in terms of valid. So it's still a research, although different school of thoughts, it is towards the findings that is reliable and valid to the future researcher. Means for future researcher, when they read or they follow our studies, they can understand what we are doing, the significance of what we have done, and maybe your research can influence in terms of future development or policy involvement ke kan, we don't know, right? So although different school of thought, it's still if macam mana nak cakap if you think it is good to follow, easier to follow, you can follow, but will back to your supervisor. If your supervisor say, yeah, the very important points, doing a research, especially for students, tak kisahlah you are master students or PhD student, the number one rules is your supervisor is always right. Yang ni you have to keep in your mind, your whatever your supervisor suggests, think, you have to follow, but you have to clarify with him whether why doctor, why you ask me to do this? Okay, because of this, because of this. You don't have to just follow them, but you have to understand what is this what this work is, what stick for. So this is a research, right? So this is type of relationship. As I mentioned before this, the number one example is always been favorites example. There is no association between lung cancer and smoking. This one can be kind of causal research design. Smoking can cause lung cancer. Is it true or is it not? So you have to do research. Maybe before this, previous research conducted kind of traditional cigarette for smoking, but today studies maybe you can conduct based on vape, I don't know, maybe the shisha. So this also kind of smoking, but using different tools. So yeah, you will get new findings. Alright, so these are example of association, correlation, or effect. These types of relationship hypothesis. And these are all another examples based on research questions. You stated or you construct the hypothesis, whether null hypothesis or alternative hypothesis. But in statistical background, it is easy for you to state the null hypothesis because it is easier for you to it is easier for you to reject null hypothesis rather than accept null hypothesis. So it is easier for you to reject null hypothesis than to reject the alternative hypothesis. So if you learn more in depth in statistical analysis, this you will go through this. All right. So until this part, do you have any question from the floor regarding the hypothesis or exploratory design or descriptive design? Any one of you have any question to be asked? No? Is there any question?
Just proceed, Dr. Farid.
All right. Okay. So next, we'll cover on the measurement, research measurement. First on the operational definition, level of measurement, whether categorical or continuous, and the scale in your instrument. Okay, so operationalization refers to the process of developing indicators or items for measuring these constructs. So this operationalization always been very difficult part for students, especially they did not understand what is terms of operationalization. Actually, it is not definitions, but it is more on the what indicators that we want to describe our variable. For example, we have several numbers of variables, so how we want to describe these variables in terms of indicators or items that easily can be understand on in terms of measurement. For instance, if an unobservable theoretical construct such as a socio-economic status. So socio-economic status is a variable, one variable in research, always been used in social science studies. So this socio-economic status is defined as the level of family income. Socio-economic status related to family income. It can be operationalized using an indicator that asks respondent the questions, what is your annual family income? Okay, clearly we know the answers will reflect on the part of the socio-economic status. Okay, given the high level of subjectivity and improvisation inherent in social science constructs, we tend to measure most of those constructs, except a few demographic constructs such as age, gender, education, and income. using multiple indicators. This process allows us to examine the closeness amongst these indicators as an assessment of their accuracy or reliability. So, in terms of socioeconomic status, your operationalization the variables into indicator or into questions that can measure. These the terms for operationalization. Not a definition for your variables. Students always do these mistakes. Okay, how do you represent your variables? Okay, so there are several types of variables, but for sure in research, if you ask me, there are only two types of research, quantitative, qualitative, and another one is mixed lah, mixed quantitative and qualitative. Other names of research design that we have gone through just now is actually different types of collecting data. But the domain behind it is whether it is a quantitative or qualitative or mixed lah. So if you see other people or been asked by your colleagues in different university, what study have you conducted? Is it quanti or quali? So maybe these two types only questions that been asked. Okay, the details is on the how the data or how the research been conducted lah. Alright. So in quantitative or continuous or metric variables, these three terms related uh, each. And then a variable that can be measured numerically or numeric and can be classified into discrete variable or continuous variable. So either the numbers is continuous, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or maybe it's discrete variable. And then another one is qualitative or categorical or non-metric variable. So it is not a numbered variable. A variable that cannot assume a numerical value but can be classified into two categories, alphanumeric. Okay, it is not numeric, but if you compare within categories, maybe you can number two categories, three categories, for example. Okay, these are the scale of measurements. Either your variables or your data in terms of nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. This one you will learn more in statistic class lah, course. So nominal is the lower scale, numbers assigned to identify attributes. There is no order, no sequence. And then the ordinal numbers assigned in ranking order arranged from lowest to highest or vice versa. Then interval, arbitrary zero, no absolute zero. Zero does not represent absence of the characteristic. And ratio, the highest scale, the true zero represent absence of the characteristics. So what is the arbitrary zero? The arbitrary zero is actually the zeros still have a meaning. The true zero, there is no meaning. For example, speed. If you walk in 0 kilometer per hour, so what does it mean? So it means you are static. No, there is a true zero, right? Okay, how to determine the scales of measurement? For example, you have a data, and then you want to know whether is it nominal, ordinal, or interval, or ratio. These figures could help you to determine the scales of measurement. First, you ask question whether it is alphanumeric or numeric. If it is alphanumeric, so the second question whether there is a sequence or no sequence. If there is no sequence, so it means nominal. Okay, for example, no sequence, Alphanumeric, gender. So male, female. So you can consider this as nominal because there is no sequence between gender. And then if there is alphanumeric for the question number 1, second question, is there any sequence? If there is sequence, so it will fall under ordinal. For example, level of education, level or status of income, status of income, not income as a number. All right, and then if your data is numeric, so the question number 2, whether the zero is arbitrary zero or true zero. If arbitrary zero, it is interval, and if it is true zero, it's a ratio. All right, so actually this is an exercise. Maybe you can do this after this. Based on this data, what can you describe on the scale of measurement? Program of study, speed, motivation scores, income categories, number of SMS received, marital status, quality of work-life scores, socioeconomic status, perception scores, membership status. We have to identify what types of scale of measurement this one. All right, types of statistics depends on purpose. First of all, if you want to conduct an analysis of data, quantitative data, so it will depends on these three items. First, purpose. Is it for descriptive or inferential? And then number 2, the assumption on normality, whether it is an parametric or non-parametric. If your data is normal, so you can conduct a parametric. If your data is not normal, so you have to conduct a non-parametric test. And then for number of variables, so if the variables is only consists of one variables to be analyzed, univariate. For two variables, bivariate, and more than two variables, multivariate. So these three items depends on types of statistical analysis to be conducted. Right, this one, the decision tree on data, since we have go through the type of scale of measurement, so I've just shared this decision tree to conduct what types of statistical analysis to be conducted. This one also could help you on identify the type of test statistical to be conducted based on your scale of measurement data. Interval ratio, nominal, ordinal, so you can conduct a t-test. ANOVA, if the group ordinal, this one, more than two groups, so you have to conduct ANOVA. So this will help you in because doing a research proposal, if I'm not wrong, you have to do until chapter 3. So within the chapter 3, you have to also have um, assumptions on what kind of data that you will get, what kind of results that you will identify. So based on this research design, you have to propose what types of analysis to be conducted for your research, because these types of analysis will be the last part in your chapter 3. Based on my studies lah, but I'm not sure on your current apa ni chapter subchapter, so maybe differs. All right, this one types of 5-point Likert scale. So as you usual see or familiar within your readings, on previous literature, maybe you will see this 5-point Likert scale, but some of the research also use 7 points Likert scale, very few on 3 points Likert scale. So these types of Likert scale, the decisions on whether you want to use 5 or 7, it's not simply just, oh, I want to use 5-point Likert scale. Why? Because I don't want too many options for the respondents. No, that's not the answer. The you have to justify whether why you choose 5 point, why don't you choose 7 points Likert scale. This kind of question could be asked by the examiner, whether they want to know, do you understand on the decision made, or uh, the current studies that you have conducted based on your decision making. So yeah, one of the reasons of why researchers always use 7-point Likert scale, because they want to have um, the 7-point Likert scale will generate more slightly this based on literature, the specific kind of difference value lah, compared to 3 or 5 point Likert scale. But depends on your apa ni previous literature, what they said on 5-point Likert scale. But if you have to have evidence or supports, please cite previous literature. This will help you. So this an example of 5-point Likert scale on frequency. Never, rarely, sometimes, often, always. So you can also use these types of Likert scale for your current research. If you study quality, maybe you can use poor, fair, good, excellent, intensity, mild, moderate, severe, agreement. Yes, this one we will always see in research. Strongly disagree, disagree, neither agree or disagree, agree, strongly agree, approval, awareness. So you have, when you have to your variables want to measure on the awareness, so you have to use this kind of Likert scale. If your variables used to measure the importance, so you cannot simply use different Likert scale, which is in the future will might put a question to your research findings or data. All right. So these methods of collecting data. So based on my school of thought, whether your research design qualitative or quantitative, these are the main methods of collecting the data. Either going through an observations, or surveys, or interviews. So these three methods of collecting data also will lead whether your research designs probably in this specific research design or not. Sometimes there are research design that inclusive of these three methods of collecting data. Okay. Okay. So observations, if you're familiar with literature that conduct observations research design, they they observe a phenomenon or situation in specific places, for example, then they just observing without any questions involved, without any communication involved. just doing an observation, maybe with questionnaire, structured questionnaire, whether you have to put numbers in the data, or maybe you have to put a description based on observation. So yeah, depends on what kind of research you are conducting. So these observations may be varied, and the data may be varied, will be collected throughout your studies. These kind of observations usually been used mostly in qualitative approach, but they are also in quantitative approach. For example, for quantitative approach, you have to assign several numbers of research assistant or enumerators in one cross junction traffic light, for example, and they have to sit there for maybe 2 hours or 3 hours in a peak hours time, and they have to calculate how many cars or motorcyclists have obstruct the traffic light, apa ni, um, the traffic light ni lah rules. So this kind of quantitative data. So maybe they can get numbers of the people obstruct the rules, the traffic rules, and maybe they can put the numbers of data on whether they are wearing seat belts or wearing helmets. So this kind of quantitative data. All right. And then surveys actually it will involve either structured or semi-structured kind of questions, whether which with different types of tools lah, or methods, surveys. Later I will share. And then interviews also will be mostly applied with using not using the qualitative approach. Qualitative approach mostly will do these interviews. But also doing interviews also you can get the quantitative data. So it depends. Depends. I don't want to make you confused, but this just a methods of collecting data. So depends on you, you the person, you are the researcher that should clear on what data that you want to get from the actual phenomena. All right, what are the two main types of research? Types of research method can be broadly divided into two: quantitative, as I mentioned. Quantitative research describe, inference, resolve problem using numbers, and qualitative research, on the other hand, is based on words, feeling, emotions, sounds, and other non-numerical and unquantifiable elements. Some say, researchers say, we are doing qualitative research because to get an in-depth answers, in-depth findings. Because doing quantitative research, we just get what we want based on what we assume. But based on qualitative research, we will get different kind of other findings that maybe we also didn't think of that findings, but yeah, we can get from this qualitative research based on um, uh, your research design, proper research design lah. Okay, this one quantitative approach. Again, we go for survey. All right. These are the tools for collecting data under the survey. Whether you are using printed questionnaires or filling forms. These pictures one of my project during my PhD. Um, I've, this project is under rural library. So these are the respondents filling the questionnaires guided by the trained enumerator. So these kind of statements should be embed into your current research proposal or research methods, because the examiner or the future researcher want to know how the data collected specifically. Is it using printed form, printed questionnaire, and how does this data were collected? Is it been controlled by the researcher itself or hired the train enumerator? So this kind of statement should be clarified in your chapter 3, right? Whether um, the detail, how details is your research method is the more detail, the good um, the good impression will you get from the reader or examiner. Because I'm also, when I've to review other works, for example an article journal or thesis, I always go to the research methodology first. Yeah, I read the research methodology, and then I will know whether this specific research met their objectives or not. Whether this research are detailed enough for me to understand what they have done or not. So chapter 3 is very important to represent the whole study, whether it is the data, whether reliable or not at the end of the findings. All right, and then whether you can use mail questionnaires. Sometimes you cannot attend, maybe for example this during pandemic, you cannot go to the specific places to see your respondents, but you have to make sure your respondents are able to handle such technologies. For example, they have their own email, they can read email, they are able to read the questionnaires, so that you can use these mail questionnaires. And then online questionnaires, maybe you can separate. Nowadays usually researchers use the online questionnaires. There are several numbers of online questionnaires out there. Apa monkey, apa lagi, Google Form, macam-macam lah. So you can use these kind of online questionnaires as long these questionnaires did help you in terms of data gathering and analysis of data later. Alright, but for sure it is only suitable for those respondents that really not only savvy, technology savvy, but they can handle this kind of technologies. Yes, it is easily for you also to separate the disseminate the link or the questionnaires using the social media apps. For example, Facebook, WhatsApp. So you can just disseminate the link for these questionnaires. But another questions, whether the person or the respondents that answer your question is really the person that you want. This also been questions and been argued among the researchers doing online questionnaires, similar to this mail questionnaires. So I always preferred printed questionnaires, or if not printed, I will bring a device, for example tabs, and I would like the respondents that, yeah, I know the respondents match the requirement of my characteristic of respondent, so they will fill the forms in front of the researcher. Okay, and then another one, telephone survey. Sometimes your respondents may be difficult in terms of time availability, so you can just by phone call, you just fill the forms in front of you by asking him. But this one might this method might um, apa ni not suitable for person who are very have a limited time, so maybe you will take their time more than uh, you need actually, because you have to read specific question and with examples of answers, so you have to figure. And then personal interviews also can be as one of the survey. If your respondents tend to be um, eldest citizens, or communities that don't literate enough to read or to write, so maybe you have to conduct these personal interviews, not in terms of asking an open question, but you have a set of questionnaires. Maybe you ask them and you just tick for them. Similar to telephone survey, but this one face to face lah, personal interviews based on survey form. Alright, and then direct observation. This one, yes, as I mentioned before, you can have a set of questionnaire, but
Farid,
yeah.
Hazman want to ask question.
Okay, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Doktor,
Ya,
selamat malam.
malam.
Nama saya Hasman. Saya nak tanya pasal saya intend tu nak interview ketua pusakawan,
Alright.
chief librarian lah.
Mm-mm.
Adakah sesuai berapa soalan yang saya boleh terus bagi kat individu-individu yang macam high profile macam ni? Adakah 10 soalan sudah memadai, ataupun yalah, kita tahu mereka pun ada priorities kerja masing-masing kan. So minta pandangan doktor.
Okay. So actually, Azman, depends on what kind of findings yang you nak gathered from these respondents. For example, if you think only with 5 questions you can get the answers that you want, so you can go for 5 questions. But yeah, depends on what data that you want from them, and my suggestion, maybe you can identify the other techniques. Okay, for example, you can conduct interviews. Okay, you can first of all you can try to set the right time first. Maybe you can ask them, do you have certain times, maybe 30 minutes or 1 hours? If they have provide their time, so please make usable of the times that they have um, prepared for you lah. Maksudnya kalau masa tu yang dia ada, kita cuba bagi dalam masa tu juga. But if we cannot, we just let them know. Okay, Tuan, sir, if if there is any questions that I will yang saya tak dapat nak tanya, atau I cannot get from you this time, maybe I can further contact, or maybe I can further ask you later, based on your times lah, availability. Tapi yang ni biasanya ya, this kind of top level management, memang we have big challenges in terms of time. Kadang-kadang nak dapat tanya pun, nak dapatkan masa pun susah. Itu yang most of students especially, they tend to change in terms of the highest level of the organization. They tend to maybe go to the deputy, or certain studies, they tend to have a long period of time to finish their studies because of this times lah. Tapi itulah suggestion, tengoklah, depends on your what your concerns, apa yang you nak. If you can get in 5 questions, just give 5 questions. Kadang-kadang during our interviews we can see them, especially when we have face to face, or maybe during using online punya meetings, Google Meets ke apa ke. So you can actually doing interviews, you can describe their apa orang cakap, expression, whether they interested to answer your question, or maybe they not so interested, or maybe they have to run to other meetings. For example, they always look into their watch, or they didn't have an eye contact with us. So if you see these things happen, maybe you have to summarize, or maybe you have to cover the most questions lah yang you rasa you boleh dapat. Boleh Azman? Ini antara tips lah.
Betul, thank you.
Alright. Ini memang challenging lah.
Farid, can I add some more
point
on
it?
Actually, first thing you have to do is to provide interview guide before you get further, and also probing question to your respondent. Meaning that you need to know kind of information to be solved for your interview. That means at least you should have 5 or 10 main question to ask. Then from the question that you asked or interview to your informant, you can probing. And we can take longer, and also you can get in-depth data. Rather you provide many question, but you have no time, or maybe you don't know how to probing. So it should be conducted in natural setting. You cannot ask like reporter, you ask then they answer, ask and answer. Not like that. It's just because during the interview session you also can analyze data, and also you can respond immediately to them. And not necessarily for it to have many questions. We can probing.
Yeah, so the main question will be guide into the next question.
Yes, correct.
So actually this one of the strategies also, you can give earlier to them what they can expect from your interview session. Yang ni lebih better lah. Alright. Okay, direct observation tadi dah okay. Okay, any other else? If you have any question, just throw a question. Alright. Okay, experimental design. Ini pun more on theories. Blueprint of the procedure that enable the researcher to maintain control over all factors that may affect the result of an experiment. So it kinds of experimental design. This experimental design always been applied by educational field. Biasa cikgu-cikgu lah, they always use this kind of experimental design, especially when they have specific modules or specific programs. So they have to conduct this kind of experimental design. And experimental research allows the researcher to control the situation. In so doing, it allows researchers to answer the question, what causes something to occur? Alright, permits the researcher to identify cause and effect relationship between variables and to distinguish placebo effects from treatment effects. This one, experimental design also been fully used by doctors, medic punya discipline. And experimental research design support the ability to limit alternative explanation and to infer direct causal relationship in the study. And approach provides the highest level of evidence for single studies. So experimental design will be based on whether your data need something to prove, for example, in the current situation. Okay. So quasi-experimental design have an intervention and manipulation of the independent variable, but they lack a key feature of experimental studies. So these two of the most popular quasi-experimental design are non-equivalent control group and time series design. I will not go through this. Maybe you could have more reading for these two type of quasi-experimental design. But the difference between experiment and quasi-experiment, in a true experiment, participants are randomly assigned to either the treatment or the control group, where they are not assigned randomly in quasi-experiment. So this one in terms of the respondent ataupun the groups. And then in a quasi-experiment, the control and treatment groups differ not only in terms of experimental treatment they receive, but also in other often unknown or unknowable ways. Thus, the researcher must try to statistically control for as many of these differences as possible. So not only they use a different kind of respondent. For example, the experimental design, you have to use similar groups or similar respondents. Okay, for example, you collect 30 respondents or 30 subjects to do this, to go through to this module. So after 6 months, you come back to this 30 subject or 30 group, 30 respondents. So you want to know whether there is a differences between before they having or apply this module and after they having this module. So similar group of peoples, but quasi they tend to be different kind of different groups of different respondents, or maybe a similar group but different module been applied. So these are differences between true experiment and quasi experiment. And because control is lacking in quasi experiments, there may be several rival hypotheses competing with the experimental manipulation as explanation of for observed results. Okay, so tadi this one is quantitative, and this one qualitative. Okay, grounded theory. Grounded theory refers to a systematic inductive methods for conducting qualitative research aimed toward theory development, and the methodological strategies of grounded theory are aimed to construct middle level theories directly from data analysis. The inductive theoretical thrust of this method is central to their logic. The resulting analysis build their power on strong empirical foundations. These analyses provide focused, abstract conceptual theories that explain the study empirical phenomena. Grounded theory methods have earned their place as a standard social research method and have influenced researchers from varied discipline and professions. So this grounded theory sebenarnya actually been implement been embed in Malaysian apa ni Malaysian culture punya research design, especially PhD lah. Masters level not really strict on this theory part, but for PhD level, I think in Malaysia, mostly in any public university, the it's not apa ni, documented punya requirement, not documented requirement that you have to at least have one contribution of the theory as a contribution of the new knowledge. But these kind of trends have been implemented in most of the research design in PhD studies in Malaysia. So you like or not, you have to absorb, or you have to apply this grounded theory. Means you have to involve theories or models in your research design, in your research framework, so that it could be marah orang dengar saya cakap sini it could be this is a kind of PhD level. If you not involve any theory contribution, so it might not can be called as a PhD kind of level research lah. So you like or not, you have to embed this grounded theory. So you have to apply lah any models of theory that related with your current studies, current scopes, current subject. So you have to look for previous literature, how they study this theory. So what is your contribution to the new knowledge regarding this theory? If you applied, for example, TAM, Technology Accepted Models, apa ITAM lah, UTAUT. So there are several theories on human behavior, for example. So instead of you using the previous theories, so what is your contribution on these theories? Maybe you can use these theories to test on the current situation whether there is a difference or similar findings from other theories, or maybe you can judge, or you can combine with several models, but based on previous literature findings also that we have suggest or recommend to do further research, but by using these theories and models. You cannot simply just, I want to see these theories and combine, and I want to add another models. I want to see what is the difference. You cannot do that. Must be based on previous literature, and your justification must be strong enough for you to embed this kind of theories. So whether you like or not, you have to do this grounded theory. All right. And from this grounded theory, the findings will help you to provide explicit sequential guidelines for conducting qualitative research, offer specific strategies for handling the analytic phase of inquiry, streamlines the integrates data collection analysis, advances conceptual analysis of qualitative data, and legitimates qualitative research as scientific inquiry. So this type of grounded theory, most of the researchers has categorized under the qualitative based on the how you extract the themes, the variables, the sub themes into you can use the terms inductive and deductive method lah to develop new conceptual theories ke, for example. But you can do these theories testing based on quantitative approach also. Okay, these are the comparison of two school of thought on grounded theory. One from Glaser and Strauss, and another one from Strauss and Corbin. So you can see the difference. This one use neutral question, this one structured questions, development of conceptual theory, this one conceptual description of situation, So this one based on previous theory, for example. This one theory is grounded in data. Theory is interpreted by the observer. So these two types of grounded theory can be implemented within your current research. But usually we apply this first one, right? Okay, what is grounded theory in accounting research? For example, this one just figures. Example is figures. You can do experiments. See, secondary from the secondary data means your literature review can can uh, can build or develop theoretical framework, and interviews with medium and cheaters, the case studies, focus group. So all these kind of method can lead to this ground theory approach. Okay, so they are research design under research design. Macam tu lah level several levels of research design. All right. Action research design and understanding of a problem is developed and plans are made for some form interventionary strategy. Then the intervention is carried out, the action in action research, during which time pertinent observations are collected in various forms. The new interventional strategies are carried out and this cyclic process repeats. The cycle and then continuing until a sufficient understanding or valid implementation solution for the problem is achieved. So this kind of action research design is a collaborative and adaptive research design that lends itself to use in work or community situation. Means when you do this action research design, it means to be you want to solve some one problem or several problems. So these designs will at the end will make a decision for a leader or maybe an organization to do changes. So this kind of action research design will give and further impacts. It's not a kind of fundamental kind of research design. It's an action research design. Usually, based on several organizations, they tend to give grants for you to do this action research design. So based on your findings, they will implement something or maybe develop a policy, something like that, right? And then design focus on pragmatic and solution-driven research outcome rather than testing theories, as I mentioned. And then when practitioners use action research, it has potential to increase the amount they learn consciously from their experience. The action research cycle can be regarded as a learning cycle, and action research studies often have direct and obvious relevance to improving practice and advocating for change. There are no hidden controls or preemption of direction by the researcher. Okay. Right. This one case study. Okay. Case study is an in-depth study of a particular research problem rather than a sweeping statistical survey or comprehensive comparative inquiry. It is often used to narrow down a very broad field of research into one or few easily researchable examples. The case study research design is also useful for testing whether a specific theory and model actually applies to phenomena in the real world. It is a useful design when not much is known about an issue or phenomenon. So this kind of case study design is usually applied to a specific groups or specific populations. For example, they have conducted a survey study before this that inclusive or for example Malaysian population, but now the specific study will be go through another study which will involve specific communities only to test whether the findings that they get from the general research will similar or will get a different kind of study. Okay, for example, studies on socioeconomic status. Okay, for example, generally been conducted for the Malaysian population. Then the case study, they have selected two groups of communities, one from rural and one from urban. So for sure, different kind of findings will be gained from this specific case study design. And also, this case study design will helps in terms of very specific purpose lah. For example, for the government to serve their ni ke apa public servant ke to serve their underserved communities ke. So this case study is really helpful in terms of this specific different types of communities or population. So these studies tell you approach excel at bringing us to an understanding of a complex issue through detailed contextual analysis. A researcher using case study design can apply a variety of methodologies and rely on variety of sources to investigate a research problem. Design can extend experience or add strength to what is already known through previous research, and social scientists in particular make wide use of this research design to examine contemporary real-life situations and provide the basis for the application of concepts and theories and the extension of methodologies. And the design can provide detailed description of specific and rare cases. So this case study design cannot be generalized to the big population. This is only for specific populations. I think that's all sharing for this session. So if you have any question to be asked, maybe you can ask during this session. I think that's all. Ada soalan tak? Kalau Kokot nak cakap Melayu pun tak apa, tak ada masalah. But I'm sharing what my from my experience based on most of my research is on quantitative. So qualitative, as I mentioned, I'm not very into it, but I've also involved in several qualitative approach. For example, if you want to do interviews, also you can do by personal or by focus group discussion. So this kind of interviews method can be improvised, or you can also make this method as a, if you familiar the how you tabulate your research data from interviews. You triangulate, you tabulate. So doing qualitative interview, maybe you have other tools to support your interviews. For example, recordings, gadget kan, and to later you want to transcribe into meaningful data, and then you have to quotes the specific answers that can bring valuable manner into your research. So this kind of quantitative and qualitative, if you want to talk between this short time under the research design, maybe insufficient lah, tak cukup. Kena ada specific, memang qualitative only and quantitative only. So this one very briefly lah. Any question tak nak share? No question. Oh, very good.
Any question, class? You can ask any question you would like to ask because Dr. Farid will answer your question, so
InsyaAllah, I
you
will
don't worry
try
about
to.
that.
Hello, good
Any
day, sir.
question?
Yeah, Musa.
Yeah, what of the lecture notes? The lecture notes
Lecture note.
or
Farid.
Note.
the recording, the lecture
Lecture
recording,
note. Farid.
lecture recording.
Lecture
Yeah,
recording.
I will send you shortly because we didn't get
Okay,
it
okay,
yet.
okay, sir.
Sabar
Okay,
je.
sir. Okay, sir. Sorry, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Oh, another, I think, based from my experience, I want to share with Azman tadi. Dealing with top level of management as a respondent, some of my students face difficulties where they ask the researcher or they ask the student to um, share the question to them or email to them. So they just want to answer by texting or replying the email through the questions. So this kind of challenges will be faced lah. Dia tak nak kena interview, dia nak jawab je. Dia kata bagilah soalan tu, saya jawab. Itu pun ada. Tapi another challenge when collecting data, when you dealing with low literacy communities, for example, before this, a lot of my research involve nelayan, fishermen, in a rural area. So they cannot read, they cannot write. So you have to ask them verbally, and sometimes they come together in a group. You want to ask one by one as respondents, but they tend to answer similar answers. For example, how do you think about the climate change happening in this specific area kan? Macam mana dengan perubahan cuaca yang berlaku sekarang ni? Ada effect, is there any effect on your current pendapatan kan, current income? So when you ask one person, then the other person, sama. Sama je, tak payah jawab lah. Jawab seorang, semua tu sama, dia kata. So how do you want to handle this kind of situation when you tend to attend a group of people together, this response. Yang ni very difficult lah. Kita kena, when you have an experience in collecting data, you know whether your research design is good enough or not. So ini actually choosing a research design will be back through your problem statement and research question, and you have, as a researcher, you have to assume what kind of data or what kind of findings that you will get from your respondents, whether the data, the findings is suitable or fit your research purpose or not.
Doktor,
Ya,
saya nak tanya, kalau kan kata-kata kita interview, tapi macam dia punya answer tu tak cukup, boleh ke kita support dengan questionnaire?
English, please. No Malay. English.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay, Musa. I will translate for you.
Thank you.
Tak cukup macam mana?
If the interview answer is not enough, so can we support the interview answer with a questionnaire?
Questionnaire, okay. first of all, this is interview method, right? Betul tak?
Betul.
Okay. So actually you should not support with the questionnaire, but as I mentioned and as Dr. Mahir mentioned before, you have to be clear with what you want. Okay. If that case happen, it means that the question that you've been asked is not been validate or it's not been verified in terms of the respondents can give the right answer or not. Dia happens before that. So but if it is happen while you collecting your data when the interview session, it's okay for you to follow up without without any questionnaires involved. Maybe you can just give a short session with him, maybe for the follow up je. Tapi kena finalize lah. If you have to identify lah what things that you still not get it from, tu yang kena tengok balik. Apa yang kita nak tu maybe tak clear lah. Bukannya dia tak bagi. But sometimes dealing with humans ni, we will face the passive kind of respondent. We ask one, we answer one kan. Tanya satu, jawab satu. Kan. So we want to encourage them to speak, very difficult, but you have to kena conduct lah new session ke. Kalau questionnaire tu dia dah macam method kita tu dah tak kena lah. But doing your chapter 3 is about the telling a story lah actually. How you design your research, how you expected to how you expect your data to be gathered, dia macam tu lah. Tapi you have to justify everything you mention in your chapter 3. Kena ada justification. Okay, thank you Ain.
Okay, thank you.
Others?
Assalamualaikum Doktor.
Salam.
Could you give more this elaboration about the mixed method design?
Oh, okay, mixed method design. Actually, mixed method design, it's involved several methods in data collection. When you, for example, I want to do a research on current situation, post-pandemic era, related to students, university students lah. University students on their perceptions ataupun their feelings doing studying online, not physical learning, PDP online. So before I want to collect the data, before I want to disseminate the instrument, the questionnaire, so I have to do qualitative data first, because based on my previous literature, there is no reference in specific instrument to be conducted, to be approached for this specific kind of studies. So first of all, I have to conduct my own instrument. So to conduct an instrument, I have to do interview session or maybe a focus group discussion. So I have to collect several numbers of students, maybe 5 to 6 people, and then I have to gather them, and then I ask questions. What are the factors that will encourage them to learn online, or what are the factors or variables that involve on their feelings, because we want to understand their feelings. So maybe from these interview sessions, I will gather some themes that I would like to make apa ni, several factors ataupun variables yang boleh I construct to measure their feelings nanti. So barulah betul based on the quantitative data nanti kita collect, the answers or the response will be helps on our finding. So this kind of methods, first we conduct interviews or focus group discussion, is qualitative methods, and then we construct instrument based on the qualitative data tadi. So we collect another data based on the questionnaires that been constructed from numbers of students. So ini the combination of qualitative and quantitative approach or data. So it we call mixed method data.
So, Doctor,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Doctor.
you always mention that we must refer to the previous research. So, can I conclude that if you want to decide our research design, it is must that we look from the research, previous research.
Betul, yes. For this stage, as a students, it is more easier, it is more helpful if you have evidence base from previous literature. Kalau if you have apa graduate later kan, you dah jadi professor ke, you can conduct your own research without any evidence. But with this evidence, your data, your research will be more significant lah. Kenapa buat macam ni? Sebab previous literature pun cakap dia buat macam ni. Tapi tak pasti lagi whether the current findings will be similar or not. Tapi we will base, dia ada something to be referred lah. Ada bahan rujukan. Dia bukan short sendiri. Sebab apa? We must justify whatever action that we taken. Itu je dia punya rahsia dia belajar ni. Dia kena ada rujukan, reference.
Hello,
Yes.
hello, Doctor. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What, Doctor?
Yeah.
Hello.
Please, Musa. Yeah. Please.
Yeah. What is your advice on which one we are the are we going to take the qualitative or quantitative research method? Which one is the best?
You cannot ask which is the best. It must be depends on your problem statement and research question.
Okay.
Must be based on that
Okay.
one.
Okay.
All right.
Because I want to use one of them, but I don't know which one is the best.
You have to figure out the what types of studies that you want to conduct first. What is your interest?
Okay.
Then from that
Okay.
you find out the literature involved, and then you will see from the literatures they must be a suggestion or recommendation which kind of approach that you have to apply.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Alright.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Doctor?
Yeah.
It's the same with the Likert scale, right? It depends on our research proposal or our questions objective, is it? Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Dr. Farid, I want to add some more point regarding the question were asked by Azri. Mixed method. Is it
Zafri.
Yeah. Okay. There are two types of mixed method you can apply, whether it's sequential mixed method or concurrent mixed method. But if we want to apply any one type of mixed method, make sure you know whether you really want to apply mixed method or not, or you want to use single method, because it depends to your research objective. Whether your research objective all can be answered using single method, or perhaps it can be applied for both type of mixed method, concurrent or sequential mixed method. Let's say you want to explore first before you go further, you explore. That means it could be like a concurrent mixed method, not sequential. No, sequential mixed method, meaning that quali followed by quanti. Yeah. So because you want to explore something that you not understand, maybe you're not clear, you observe certain phenomena in that organization, followed by surveys, for example. So, but make sure when you want to conduct or deploy mixed method, it's not 50-50. It's not 50% goes under quali, 50% go under quanti. Not like that, because you have to know the weightage, whether the objective fall under quanti or quali. But at the same time, your target to conduct using mixed method, it's okay. It doesn't matter. But it should clear based on your objective, because everything derived from your objective. Okay. And also question given by Musa, because you were asking about which one is better, and also which one most effective way for you to apply. Actually, there's no single justification mentioned that you have to choose quali or quanti. It depends to your capability to apply. Whether you can conduct using quanti, but it depends to your research objective, like Dr. Farid mentioned just now, and also the purpose of your study. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank
Okay.
you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Doctor, what if we found that the literature review about the research that we want to do is, I mean, we are lacking the previous research about what we want to do. So how we want to determine our research design?
Okay, means you lack of your research. Can you give an example? Senang nak relate. Study pasal apa?
I don't have a very specific example, doctor. I just think in my mind. Maybe I just try to want to digest all the what possibility in doing my research.
Okay, like this, I can give you an example. Maybe based on new technologies nowadays, if you are familiar with terms spacemaker. Are you familiar with spacemaker?
No, doctor, not familiar.
Spacemaker, betul kan? Betul kot. Spacemaker. Okay. For example, this kind of technologies or services, spacemaker been implemented in several countries. These spacemakers have applied several facilities with technologies for their communities to use them. Okay. So when these new technologies been implemented, there is very limited literatures on these kind of technologies. So based on very limited kind of technologies, we cannot suddenly do a quantitative study to know how important, how good these services, how good these technologies, how their perception. We cannot ask our communities which is not familiar with this term at all. So if this phase, that's why you have to one of the solution, you can conduct a quantitative studies based on this implementation of new technologies, new services. You ask maybe we can said, prospect user, prospect developer on this specific kind of study. So maybe you have to introduce the technologies or the services first to them, and then you can ask on their feedbacks, because they don't know how was the technologies good to them, but based on their perception, maybe you can gather some themes on their answers based on whether they feel this technology's importance, whether they feel this importance, these technologies really helpful in terms of their daily work, for example. So this kind of apa ni this kind of aspect yang elements which is lack of limited studies, new technologies. This one you want to get an in-depth orang panggil apa? In-depth bukan solution, in-depth jawab, maksudnya in-depth feedback lah. Kita nak tahu apa yang kita boleh dapat daripada current situation dengan whether kita ni prepared ke nak ada benda ni, semua tu kita kena ada ni dulu. Tapi biasa mostly this kind of qualitative kind of studies biasanya been conducted by companies tau, when they want to implement new technologies apa semua, dia ada tengok previous studies, but totally yang dia nak buat ni baru, new things. So they have to find out the prospect users, they have to interview, ini yang dia buat. But the most practice this kind of studies, I can say the companies lah, big company lah. Yang ni boleh go through dia punya methods. Kalau tengok dia memang dia ada teams dia. So this kind of qualitative study really helpful in terms of limited studies, limited sources.
Okay, Doctor, thank you.
Any other question?
I think back to the previous question that were asking by that student. Actually, if you really sure and also you really confident there is no design that you can apply, that you can adopt and adapt from previous study, that means you have to think something how to solve the problem that you want, the problem that you want to solve. Yeah, perhaps you need to explore first, like what Dr. Farid mentioned just now, exploratory. Yeah, if you're really sure, if you really confident there's no research design, it can be adapted or adapted from previous research or any other field that you can apply. I don't think that nowadays we can find a lot of research design. Yeah, nowadays very popular with design science example. So that kind of method you can adopt and adapt. Yeah? In fact, let's say in our field, information management, very limited design or very limited method or instrument that you can use. You also can look at the field or other other subjects, yeah, engineering, maybe you can adopt and adapt. Yeah, you can think about the suitability design or method for your study. I think this is the best way on how to solve your problem. That's why I said you have to read a lot before you decide, before you're really confident, and also you really know that there's no design you can use for your study.
Betul.
That is the challenge, Doctor.
You have to read a lot.
Dr. Mahir. Actually, student always come to their supervisors and they have conclude, Doctor, I've read a lot. I didn't find any related literature. Actually, you have to look beyond your discipline, beyond your subject. you have to try to get, maybe you are from social science, you have to go to look for science, from engineering sides, maybe their theories, their models can be implemented or can be adapted with our current studies, because these kind of skills the current students lack. Yes, but what I'm always sharing with my students, you can conduct a systematic literature review. So by implement this systematic literature review, insyaAllah you will not miss any related literature ataupun related methods yang related to your current studies. Because apa, you don't have to read thousand ataupun even 100 papers, but if you find the specific paper very related or similar with your studies, even within second readings, then you can use that papers as your main reference lah. Dia macam, it's not because you lucky enough to find your specific papers, tapi how the skill or the method that you look for your papers. We don't want to overclaim that, oh, there is no other studies has been done this work. I've gone through all the papers, memang tak jumpa kan. No, you have to look with a systematic kind of step or method, then you can mention that along. Tapi itulah, kena ada skills, then you will know whether there is related papers within other discipline or not. Kita tak boleh in our discipline only. Kalau nak belajar SLR, insyaAllah saya boleh ajar. Sempat promote pula.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay.
I think we already almost end our session. Maybe you can open only one question. Maybe we can get one more question. Last question.
Okay, Doctor. I would like to ask a question. I'm Sharifah. Okay, for Likert scale, is it okay to make it even number instead of odd?
Even number, dia
Ada
macam ni.
buat 5 kan? Kalau buat 4 ke 8 ke?
You must have a good justification.
Oh, okay.
Boleh, dia boleh. Ada, saya tengok ada 4. Dia ada researcher yang use 4, tapi dia ada justify lah why they use 4. So kita just cite the codes lah. Based on this researcher, they said 4, okay. So you can. Dia tak ada masalah as long as you can justify why you use 4, why you use 5.
Oh, okay.
Alright.
Maksudnya bukan mesti 5 lah. Maksudnya cuma kita kena justify lah. Okay, baik.
Betul.
Okay, terima kasih, Doktor.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's all for today lesson. I hope all students can get something from Dr. Farid. Very good presentation, and also we may obtain something useful for us to use, especially for student PhD as well as for master student, because this part you are going to put and you are going to write in chapter 3 of your research methodology. For your research proposal, need to include in chapter 3. Need to justify clearly, and also you need to elaborate very detailed why and how you're going to apply the such method for your study. This very important thing.